The last rays of sunset lingered on the horizon of Nova Aeon, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson. 17-year-old Lena stood at her bedroom window, watching as darkness gradually claimed the city. Not so long ago, the night skies had been filled with stars, but lately, they seemed dimmer, as if something was slowly consuming the light itself. Nova Aeon was a peculiar blend of past and future. Towering skyscrapers of glass and steel stood alongside restored classical architecture, a visual reminder of the temporal disaster that had reshaped their world in the early 22nd century. The Great Temporal Collapse, they called it. Few remembered what had actually happened, but everyone lived with its consequences. Lena traced her fingers along the window pane, following the outline of the time tower that dominated the city center, the headquarters of the Kronos Institute, where her father worked, or rather, where he was kept. "Lena, come help with dinner," her father's voice called from downstairs. She sighed and turned away from the window. The antique pocket watch on her desk caught her eye, its golden surface gleaming despite never being polished. It had been her mother's last gift before she disappeared during the collapse. Lena had never opened it, respecting her father's warning that some things from the past were better left untouched. Dr. Arden Kane was stirring a pot of soup when Lena entered the kitchen. Despite his brilliance as a temporal researcher, he was a disaster when it came to cooking. His dark hair was streaked with premature gray, and perpetual worry lines creased his forehead. At 45, he looked a decade older, the price of working for the Institute. "Where's Milo?" Lena asked, taking over the cooking duties before her father could burn the soup beyond salvation. "Playing in the yard. Could you call him in? It's getting dark earlier these days." Lena nodded, trying not to notice the concern in her father's eyes. They both knew the darkness wasn't natural. Outside, 8-year-old Milo was climbing the large oak tree that marked the boundary of their modest property. The Institute had generously provided this house for Dr. Kane and his children, conveniently located where they could keep a close eye on the family. "Milo, dinner time," Lena called, shielding her eyes against the last light of day. "5 more minutes," the boy shouted back, already halfway up the tree. "Now, Milo, Dad's waiting." Milo groaned, but began his descent. Suddenly, a crack split the evening air. The branch beneath Milo's feet gave way, and he plummeted toward the ground. Time seemed to slow. Lena screamed, lunging forward, even though she was too far away to catch him. As her heart threatened to burst from her chest, something strange happened. A tingling sensation spread from her core to her fingertips, and the world around her began to blur. The pocket watch in her room, which she had never worn, flashed in her mind's eye. Then, like a film rewinding, everything moved backward. Milo rose back up the tree, the branch reassembled, and Lena found herself standing at the back door again, calling out to her brother. "5 more minutes," Milo shouted, exactly as before. Disoriented and shaking, Lena sprinted across the yard. "Milo, get down now. That branch is going to break." The urgency in her voice startled the boy into immediate compliance. He had barely touched the ground when the branch cracked and fell, landing with a heavy thud exactly where he had been moments before. Milo's eyes widened. "How did you know?" Lena couldn't answer. The world was spinning around her, and a strange darkness seemed to gather at the edges of her vision. Above them, the sky darkened prematurely. The last glow of sunset extinguished as if someone had flipped a switch. "Let's go inside," she whispered, taking her brother's hand. As they walked back to the house, Lena glanced over her shoulder. For a moment, she thought she saw something moving in the shadows beneath the tree, a darkness deeper than the gathering night, watching her with what felt like hungry anticipation. That night, sleep eluded Lena. The pocket watch on her desk seemed to pulse with an energy she had never noticed before. When she finally drifted off near dawn, her dreams were filled with spinning clock hands and a voice that whispered, "Time is a door." and you have the key." She awoke to find the pocket watch clutched in her hand, its metal warm against her palm. For the first time, she pressed the crown, and the case sprang open. Inside, beneath the crystal face, the clock hands stood frozen at midnight. As she watched, they began to move, not forward, but backward. Over breakfast, Dr. Kane studied his daughter with concern. "You look tired. Bad dreams?" Lena pushed her cereal around the bowl. "Dad, what exactly do you research at the Institute?" Her father's spoon paused halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully. "You know I can't discuss that. Lena, it's about time manipulation, isn't it? That's why they keep us under surveillance." Dr. Kane's face paled. "Who told you we're under surveillance?" "Nobody had to tell me," Lena said, gesturing to the windows. "The same car has been parked across the street for 3 years. Our phones make that weird clicking sound. And you never talk about your work, even though it's obviously eating you alive." Before her father could respond, Milo burst into the kitchen, full of energy as always. "Dad, can we go to the Temporal Museum today? They have a new exhibit on paradox theory." Dr. Kane ruffled his son's hair. "Not today, buddy. I have to go to work." He shot Lena a look that clearly said their conversation wasn't over. After he left, Lena found herself drawn to the old oak tree. The broken branch still lay where it had fallen, but something else caught her attention. A patch of grass beneath the tree had withered overnight, turned black as if scorched by an invisible fire. Throughout the day, Lena tried to convince herself that what had happened with Milo was a strange premonition, nothing more. But deep down, she knew better. She had rewound time, 5 minutes, to be exact, and somehow she had brought back knowledge from a future that no longer existed. That evening, as she helped Milo with his homework, a crash from the kitchen startled them both. They ran in to find their father on the floor, a broken mug beside him, clutching his chest. "Dad!" Lena dropped to her knees beside him. "What's wrong?" "Pills," he gasped. "In my coat." Lena rushed to retrieve the medication, but when she returned, her father's eyes had rolled back, his breathing shallow and labored. "Call emergency services," she shouted to Milo, who stood frozen in terror. As the boy fumbled with the phone, panic clawed at Lena's throat. Her father couldn't die. He couldn't leave them alone with the Institute watching their every move. The tingling sensation returned, stronger this time, radiating from her chest. The pocket watch, which she had left in her room, appeared in her mind again, its hands spinning rapidly counterclockwise. Once more. The world blurred and rewound. The mug reassembled itself. Her father rose from the floor, and Lena found herself back in Milo's room, helping with multiplication tables. "I need to check on Dad," she said, her voice trembling. She rushed downstairs just as her father entered the kitchen. He looked exhausted, his movements sluggish. "Dad, where are your heart pills?" she asked without preamble. Dr. Kane frowned. "In my coat pocket? Why?" "You need to take one, now." "Lena, what? Please, just do it." Something in her voice must have convinced him, because he retrieved the medication without further argument. Minutes later, the very moment when he would have collapsed, he merely winced and leaned against the counter for support. "How did you know?" he asked, studying her with new intensity. Before Lena could formulate a response, the lights flickered. Outside, darkness fell with unnatural swiftness, though it was barely 7 p.m. Through the kitchen window, Lena saw their neighbors emerge from their houses, pointing at the sky in confusion. That night, as the city buzzed with theories about the strange early sunset, Dr. Kane sat his daughter down in his study. "It's happening again, isn't it?" he asked quietly. Lena swallowed. "What's happening?" Her father's eyes were haunted. "The darkness. It's been 30 years since I've seen it come this quickly." He leaned forward. Lena, I need you to be honest with me. Have you experienced anything unusual lately? Anything that might seem impossible? The pocket watch felt heavy in her pocket. She had taken to carrying it with her, though she couldn't explain why. I think I can rewind time, she whispered, the words sounding absurd even as she spoke them. Instead of dismissing her claim, Dr. Kane closed his eyes, a mixture of fear and resignation washing over his features. Your mother could do it too. The revelation hit Lena like a physical blow. Mom, is that why she disappeared? In a manner of speaking, her father opened a drawer and removed a worn journal. The Institute doesn't know I kept this. If they did. He shuddered. Your mother discovered her ability when she was about your age. The temporal collapse hadn't happened yet, but there were incidents, unexplained phenomena that the government blamed on experimental technology. What really caused them? People like your mother. Temporal anomalies. The Institute calls them. Individuals who can manipulate the flow of time naturally, without technology. They're incredibly rare, or they were, until the collapse created more of them. Lena's mind reeled. And the darkness, what's that? Dr. Kane's voice dropped to a whisper. A side effect. Every time you rewind, you tear a small hole in the fabric of reality. Something from elsewhere seeps through. We called it Chronos Night. We? Your mother and I, we studied it together before the Institute took over our research. He gripped Lena's hands. Promise me you won't use this ability again. Each rewind strengthens the night's hold on our world. Lena wanted to promise, but the memory of saving both Milo and her father made her hesitate. What if it's something important? What if someone's life is at stake? Then you'll have to weigh that life against the potential cost to everyone else. Her father's expression softened. I'm sorry, Lena. This burden shouldn't be yours. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. Dr. Kane tensed. Stay here, he ordered, closing the study door behind him. Lena pressed her ear against the wood, straining to hear. Her father's voice. Then another, deeper, authoritative. The visitor spoke too quietly for her to make out the words, but her father's response was clear enough. My daughter knows nothing about my work. Agent Rourke. The Institute has my full cooperation, as always. Recent temporal fluctuations suggest otherwise. Dr. Kane, the director believes your research has progressed further than you've reported. That's absurd. All my findings are documented and submitted according to protocol. Then you won't mind if we take a look around. Footsteps approached the study. Lena backed away from the door, heart pounding. The pocket watch in her hand seemed to grow warmer, almost pulsing with energy. The doorknob turned, without conscious thought. Lena activated her ability. The world rewound, and she found herself sitting across from her father once more. Moments before the doorbell rang. Someone's coming, she blurted. An Agent Rourke from the Institute. He wants to search the house. Dr. Kane paled. How do you... He stopped, understanding dawning in his eyes. You just used it, didn't you? The doorbell rang. Go out the back way, her father whispered urgently. Take Milo to Aunt Grace's house. I'll handle this. Dad, no. Lena, listen to me. The Institute can't find out what you can do. They'll take you away, just like they took your mother. He pressed the journal into her hands. Everything you need to know is in here. Now go. Reluctantly, Lena slipped out the back door, retrieved a sleepy and confused Milo from his room, and disappeared into the gathering darkness. As they made their way through back alleys toward their aunt's house on the other side of town, Lena couldn't shake the feeling they were being followed. Twice. She caught glimpses of movement in the shadows, and once, she could have sworn she heard whispering that seemed to come from the darkness itself. The streets were oddly deserted. Nova Aeon was usually bustling even at night, but tonight, people seemed to have retreated indoors. The few pedestrians they passed moved quickly, heads down, as if afraid to acknowledge the unnatural darkness that had settled over the city. When they finally reached Aunt Grace's apartment building, Lena hesitated. Her father's sister was kind but practical to a fault. How would she explain their sudden arrival, especially with the city in such a strange state? Before she could decide, a hand clamped over her mouth. Milo's startled cry was similarly muffled. Lena struggled against her captor, but their grip was like iron. "Stop fighting," a woman's voice hissed in her ear. "If you're who I think you are, we're on the same side." The stranger dragged them into a narrow alley and finally released them. Lena whirled around, pushing Milo behind her protectively. Their captor was a woman in her 30s, with close-cropped silver hair and eyes that seemed to reflect light like a cat's. A jagged scar ran from her left temple to her jaw. "Who are you?" Lena demanded. "Kira. I lead what you might call a resistance." The woman glanced nervously at the street. "We need to move. The Watchers are out in force tonight." "Watchers?" "Institute agents. Special Division." Kira's expression hardened. "They hunt people like you." "I don't know what you're talking about," Lena said, though her hand instinctively closed around the pocket watch. Kira's eyes followed the movement. "That's a temporal anchor, isn't it? Just like the one your mother had." Lena froze. "You knew my mother?" "She was one of us. Before." Kira trailed off. "Look, I'll explain everything, but not here. Will you come with me? Both of you?" she added, nodding to Milo, who was watching the exchange with wide, frightened eyes. Every instinct told Lena not to trust this stranger, but the mention of her mother and the pocket watch, the temporal anchor, tipped the scales. "Okay," she said finally, "but if you try anything, you'll rewind and escape." "I know." Kira smiled grimly. "That's exactly what your mother would have said." Kira led them through a maze of back streets and abandoned buildings, eventually stopping at what appeared to be a derelict subway entrance. She tapped a complex pattern on a rusted control panel, and a hidden door slid open in the wall. "Welcome to the sanctuary," she said, ushering them inside. The contrast between the decrepit exterior and the interior was stark. The underground facility was well lit and organized, with people moving purposefully between rooms equipped with a mix of advanced technology and repurposed everyday items. "You live down here?" Milo asked, his fear temporarily forgotten in the face of such an adventure. "Some of us do," Kira replied. "Others maintain normal lives on the surface, gathering information and resources." She led them to a central chamber where a dozen people gathered around a holographic map of Nova Aeon. Dark patches marred various sections of the city, pulsing and shifting like living shadows. "Chronos night manifestations," a tall man explained, noticing Lena's stare. "They've increased by 30% in the last 24 hours. "After I used my ability," Lena whispered, the weight of her father's warning settling like lead in her stomach. Kira nodded. "Every rewind tears the fabric a little more. The night seeps through, feeding on memories, dreams, eventually even consciousness itself." "Then why would you want me to use it?" Lena challenged. "Isn't that making things worse?" "Because we believe your anchor is special," Kira said. "Your mother thought it might be the key to closing the rifts permanently." "My mother disappeared during the collapse," Lena said. "That's what my father told me." The resistance members exchanged looks. "That's not exactly what happened," Kira said carefully. "Your mother didn't disappear during the collapse. In many ways, she caused it." Over the next hour, Lena learned the truth about her mother. Alara Kane had been a brilliant temporal physicist who discovered her ability accidentally while working with Dr. Kane at a private research facility. Unlike others with similar abilities, Alara could control her rewinding with precision. using the pocket watch, the anchor, to focus her power. The government soon learned of her gift and established the Kronos Institute to study and potentially weaponize it. But Alara grew concerned about the side effects of her abilities, particularly the darkness that seemed to follow each use. Your mother theorized that the anchors weren't just tools, but conduits, Kira explained. Bridges between our reality and something else. An entity she called Kronos Night. An entity? You mean it's alive? Lena asked, horrified. In a manner of speaking, it exists in a state we can barely comprehend, but it's aware and hungry. Kira's expression darkened. It feeds on possibilities, futures that might have been before a rewind erases them. When your mother realized what was happening, another resistance member continued. She tried to warn the Institute. They ignored her concerns, focusing instead on developing technology to amplify her abilities. That's when she came to us. The resistance existed even then. We called ourselves the Keepers of the Flow back then. People who understood the dangers of temporal manipulation. Kira smiled sadly. Your mother became our most valuable ally, helping us sabotage the Institute's more dangerous projects. What happened to her? Lena asked, though part of her already knew the answer. The Institute developed a device they called the Temporal Accelerator. It was designed to enhance a temporal anomaly's natural abilities, allowing them to rewind years instead of minutes. Your mother knew it would create a rift large enough for Kronos Night to fully enter our world. So she tried to destroy it, Lena guessed. Kira nodded. The resulting explosion caused the temporal collapse, a massive rewind that affected the entire city, possibly beyond. When time stabilized again, the world had changed. The Institute seized control, blaming temporal terrorists for the disaster, and began hunting down anyone with abilities. And my mother? We don't know. She disappeared during the collapse. Some believe she was consumed by Kronos Night. Others think she's trapped between moments, still trying to prevent the catastrophe. Lena sat in stunned silence, trying to process everything. The pocket watch, her mother's anchor, felt impossibly heavy in her hand. Why are you telling me all this? She finally asked. Because history is repeating itself, Kira said grimly. The Institute has built a new accelerator, more powerful than the first. They plan to activate it at midnight on the anniversary of the collapse, 3 days from now. And you want me to stop them, like my mother tried to do. We want you to succeed where she failed. Kira leaned forward intently. Your anchor is unique. Lena, it's connected to Kronos Night in a way the others aren't. We believe you might be able to communicate with the entity, perhaps even reason with it. Lena laughed bitterly. Reason with a darkness that feeds on lost futures? That sounds insane. Perhaps, Kira acknowledged. But we're running out of options. The night grows stronger with each rewind, whether it's caused by you or by the Institute's experiments. If the accelerator activates, the rift will be too large to repair. What about my father? And Milo? The Institute has probably taken Dad already. They have, the tall man confirmed, checking a tablet. Our sources inside report he was detained for questioning an hour ago. Lena felt sick. Then I have to go back. I can rewind and warn him earlier. No! Kira grabbed her wrist. That's exactly what they want. They're monitoring temporal fluctuations throughout the city. If you rewind now, they'll pinpoint your location instantly. I can't just abandon my father. And you won't, Kira assured her. But we need to be smart about this. Rushing in without a plan will only get you both captured. As the resistance members debated strategy, Milo tugged at Lena's sleeve. I'm scared, he whispered, his earlier excitement completely gone. Lena pulled him into a hug. It'll be okay, she promised, though she had no idea how to keep that promise. That night, as Milo slept in a makeshift bed, Lena studied her mother's journal by the light of a small lamp. The pages were filled with equations, diagrams, and increasingly desperate observations about Kronos Night. One entry caught her attention. The anchor grows warmer with each use. I can feel something inside it, watching, waiting. Last night, it spoke to me in my dreams. It called itself Kronos Night, though I sense that's merely the closest approximation our language can manage. It exists beyond time, in what it calls the void, a place where all possibilities coexist simultaneously. Our linear perception of time is anathema to it. Each rewind is a crack in the wall between our realities, allowing it to reach through and feed on the severed timeline. Lena shuddered, remembering the voice in her own dreams. She read on. Cien showed me what will happen if the Institute succeeds. A world of perpetual darkness, where time has no meaning and humanity exists in a state of half-consciousness, feeding the entity with an endless stream of unrealized futures. I cannot allow this to happen, even if it means sacrificing myself. The final entry, dated the day before the collapse, was brief and chilling. The accelerator must be destroyed tomorrow. Arden doesn't know my plan. He would try to stop me, to find another way. But there is no other way. The anchor has shown me the path. I will use it one final time, not to rewind, but to reset. May those who come after understand what I could not. Lena closed the journal, her mind racing. What had her mother meant by reset, and how was it different from rewinding? The pocket watch pulsed in her hand, as if responding to her thoughts, on impulse. She clicked it open. The hands were moving normally now, ticking forward instead of backward. As she watched, the minute hand completed a full circle and a small compartment in the back of the watch sprang open. Inside was a tiny key, so delicate it looked as if it might break at the slightest touch. Beneath it, etched into the metal, were the words, "Time is a door. The key turns both ways." "You found it." Lena jumped. Kira stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "What is it?" Lena asked, though she already suspected the answer. "The reset key. Your mother mentioned it in her communications with us, but we thought it was destroyed in the collapse." Kira approached slowly, as if afraid Lena might bolt. "With this, you might be able to do what your mother couldn't, close the door to Kronos Night permanently." "How?" "We're not entirely sure," Kira admitted. "But according to your mother's research, the key can unlock the full potential of an anchor, allowing its user to manipulate time in ways beyond simple rewinding. Like resetting the entire timeline, erasing everything that's happened. Possibly. Or perhaps it allows more precise control, changing specific moments without affecting others." Kira's eyes gleamed with what might have been hope or fear. "We need to run tests to understand its capabilities before the anniversary." Lena closed her hand around the key. "No tests. This stays with me until I decide what to do with it." Kira looked like she wanted to argue, but nodded reluctantly. "Just remember, we're running out of time, literally." The next morning brought news that Kronos Night manifestations had increased again. People on the surface reported strange phenomena, objects moving on their own, electronic devices playing recordings from days past, and most disturbing, individuals forgetting large chunks of their personal histories. "The night is feeding on memories now," Kira explained grimly. "As the rifts widen, its influence grows stronger." Lena spent the day learning everything she could about the Institute's new accelerator and her mother's attempts to destroy the original. The Resistance had gathered impressive intelligence, including building schematics and security protocols, but one crucial piece was missing. "We don't know exactly how the accelerator works." The tall man, whose name Lena had learned was Dominic, admitted. "Without that, we can't be sure how to disable it safely." "My father would know," Lena said. "He helped design the original." "Getting to him won't be easy," Kira warned. He's being held in the Institute's secure wing, beneath the Time Tower. Then that's where I need to go. Despite Kira's objections, Lena insisted on joining the rescue mission. They couldn't afford to wait, not with the anniversary approaching and the darkness spreading. After much debate, a plan was formed. A small team, including Lena, would infiltrate the Institute under the guise of maintenance workers, while the rest of the resistance created a distraction at a secondary facility across town. "What about Milo?" Lena asked. "I can't leave him here alone." "He'll stay with our medical team," Kira assured her. "Safest place in the sanctuary." As preparations continued, Lena found herself increasingly drawn to the pocket watch. She would catch herself staring at it for long periods, watching the hands tick steadily forward, occasionally reversing briefly before resuming their normal path. Sometimes, she thought she could hear whispering emanating from it, not words exactly, but impressions, emotions, hunger. The night before the mission, she dreamed of Kronos Night again. This time, it showed her visions of Nova Aeon engulfed in darkness. Citizens wandering like ghosts, their memories and identities slowly dissolving into the growing void. At the center of it all stood the Time Tower, now a massive obelisk of shifting shadow, with the accelerator at its heart, pulsing like a malevolent heart. "This is one possible future," a voice whispered. "One of many. I have existed in all of them." Lena found herself standing before a door made of pure darkness, its edges constantly shifting and reforming. The pocket watch hung suspended in the air before it, the reset key floating beside it. "You could stop this," the voice continued, "or you could join me. Time has no meaning in the void, no loss, no pain, no endings. But no beginnings either," Lena countered. "No growth, no change. Change is an illusion. All possibilities already exist simultaneously. Your linear perception creates the illusion of progression." The key began to turn by itself, and the door cracked open slightly. Through the gap, Lena glimpsed what looked like multiple versions of Nova Aeon layered atop one another, constantly shifting and reforming. "Your mother understood. In the end," the voice said. "She tried to reset everything, to close the door forever, but she lacked the necessary connection to the void." "What connection?" "Blood calls to blood. Time calls to time. The key turns both ways." Lena woke with a gasp. The reset key clutched so tightly in her palm that it had drawn blood. A single drop fell onto the face of the pocket watch, and for an instant the clock hands spun wildly before settling back into their regular rhythm. The infiltration mission began at dawn. Dressed in maintenance uniforms with identification badges forged by the Resistance, Lena, Kira, and Dominic approached the service entrance of the Time Tower. The distraction had worked. Most of the security personnel had been dispatched to the secondary facility where a small explosion had damaged the perimeter fence. Getting past the initial checkpoints was surprisingly easy. The Resistance's intelligence was accurate, and the skeleton crew remaining at the tower was more concerned with the potential threat across town. They made their way to the secure wing, following the path memorized from the building schematics. "Detention cells should be through here," Dominic whispered, indicating a reinforced door at the end of a sterile corridor. Kira worked quickly to bypass the electronic lock while Lena kept watch. The hallway remained deserted, but Lena couldn't shake the feeling that they were being observed. Shadows seemed to linger too long in corners, and the air felt thick, as if the darkness itself was pressing against them. "Got it," Kira announced as the door slid open with a soft hiss. The detention area was a circular chamber with glass cells arranged around a central control station. Most were empty, but in one, Dr. Kane sat with his head in his hands, looking defeated. "Dad!" Lena rushed forward before Kira could stop her. Dr. Kane looked up in shock. "Lena, what are you doing here? You need to leave immediately." "We're getting you out," she said, turning to Kira. "Can you open the cell?" Before Kira could respond, slow applause echoed through the chamber. Impressive. I expected a rescue attempt, but not quite so soon. A man stepped from the shadows behind the control station, tall and imposing in a black institute uniform. His face was eerily familiar, with features that reminded Lena of her father, though harder, colder. Agent Rourke, I presume, Lena said, her hand instinctively reaching for the pocket watch concealed beneath her uniform. You have me at a disadvantage, Rourke replied smoothly. Though I suspect you're Lena Kane, you look remarkably like your mother. Let my father go. I'm afraid I can't do that. Dr. Kane's expertise is essential to our project. Rourke's gaze fixed on the bulge in Lena's pocket. But I'd be willing to negotiate an exchange. His freedom for your mother's anchor. Dr. Kane pressed against the glass. Lena, don't. The anchor is too dangerous in their hands. I know what you're planning, Lena said, ignoring her father's warning. The accelerator. You're going to activate it on the anniversary. Accelerate, amplify, and harness, Rourke confirmed with a cold smile. The temporal collapse was a setback, but it taught us valuable lessons. This time, we'll control the process. The energy released by a controlled rift will power Nova Aeon for centuries. And Kronos Knight, what about the entity that comes through the rift? Rourke's smile faltered slightly. A myth, a personification of natural phenomena by those who don't understand the science. It's real, Lena insisted, and it's getting stronger with each rewind. If there is an intelligence behind the temporal distortions, all the more reason to study and potentially communicate with it. Rourke extended his hand. The anchor. Please, for your father's freedom. Kira shook her head minutely, warning Lena not to comply. Dominic had positioned himself near the entrance, ready to act if necessary. Lena withdrew the pocket watch slowly. You know, Agent Rourke, there's something I've been wondering. How did you know we were coming? The distraction should have drawn all security to the secondary facility. Let's just say I have a unique perspective on temporal matters. Rourke's eyes gleamed strangely in the low light. Now, the anchor. Instead of handing it over, Lena clicked it open. The reset key was nestled in its hidden compartment, glinting like a tiny star. Rourke's composure cracked. The key! She found the key! He lunged forward, faster than seemed humanly possible. Lena instinctively activated her ability. The world began to rewind. But something was different this time. Instead of a smooth reversal, time seemed to stutter and jump, as if fighting against her control. Rourke remained in motion, unaffected by the rewind. You can't escape me that way, he snarled, grabbing for the watch. I exist outside your little tricks. As they struggled, darkness bloomed around them, coalescing into tendrils that writhed and pulsed. The overhead lights flickered and died, plunging the chamber into near-total darkness, illuminated only by the emergency lights and the now glowing pocket watch. Lena! Kira shouted, rushing to help, but finding herself unable to move as shadows wrapped around her legs. Kronos Knight, Lena whispered, understanding dawning. It's here, in the tower. It's everywhere, Rourke corrected, his voice changing, deepening, in every crack, every shadow, every moment of doubt. And it's especially fond of you. Lena Kane, daughter of Alara, carrier of the anchor, with a strength born of desperation. Lena twisted away from Rourke and slammed the reset key into the central mechanism of the pocket watch. A high-pitched whine filled the air, and the clock hands began to spin, faster and faster, until they blurred into a solid circle. The darkness surrounding them recoiled as if in pain. Rourke staggered back, his features momentarily distorting to reveal something inhuman beneath the surface. Stop, he commanded, his voice overlapping with others, countless voices speaking in unison. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, Lena replied, though in truth, she was operating purely on instinct. "I'm finishing what my mother started." The pocket watch grew hot in her hand, almost unbearably so. But she refused to let go. The spinning hands created a vortex of energy that spread outward, pushing back the darkness and revealing what had been hidden. Around them, the walls of the detention chamber seemed to dissolve, showing multiple overlapping versions of reality, some where the room was empty, others where it was filled with different people, still others where it didn't exist at all. Through this temporal kaleidoscope, Lena glimpsed the true form of Kronos night, not darkness, but an absence, a void between possibilities, hungering to consume them all. And at its center stood Roark, or rather, the entity wearing Roark's form. In this moment of clarity, Lena recognized him. "Milo," she gasped. "But how? Oh." The entity wearing adult Milo's face smiled sadly. "Time is a circle, sister. In one potential future, I became this, a vessel for Kronos night, sent back to ensure its emergence. That's not possible. Milo is at the sanctuary, and also here, and in countless other potential timelines." The entity gestured to the swirling realities around them. The collapse fractured time itself. Fragments of futures and pasts exist simultaneously, overlapping, contradicting. "I am both your brother and not, both human and beyond humanity." Dr. Kane, somehow free from his cell in the chaos, approached cautiously. "The accelerator didn't just damage time," he said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "It shattered it completely. We've been living in just one of many overlapping realities. And Kronos night feeds on the gaps between them," Lena concluded. "Each rewind widens those gaps." "Precisely," the entity confirmed, "but the reset key offers a different approach. Not rewinding, but realigning, bringing the fragments back into harmony." "At what cost?" Lena demanded, sensing a trap. "Everything has a price," the entity said, its form shifting between Milo, Roark, and something else entirely. "The reset will erase this particular timeline completely. A fresh start, with no memory of what came before. Kira, finally free from the shadow restraints, joined them. Don't trust it, Lena. Kronos night wants the key for itself. Actually, it fears the key," Dr. Kane corrected, studying the entity with scientific curiosity despite the circumstances. "It can't exist in a unified timeline. The reset would banish it back to the void." The vortex from the pocket watch had grown to encompass the entire chamber now, reality flickering and shifting around them. Through the temporal distortions, Lena could see the accelerator several floors below, a massive device pulsing with energy, ready to widen the rifts permanently. "I have to destroy it," she said, clutching the watch tightly. "Just like Mom tried to do." "You'll be erased along with this timeline," the entity warned. "Everything you know, everyone you love, gone. But a new timeline will form," Dr. Kane said, "one where the collapse never happened. One where Mom might still be alive," Lena whispered. "One where I never become this," the entity added, momentarily looking fully like Milo again, vulnerability showing through its cosmic facade. Lena's heart ached at the thought of sacrificing her brother, both the innocent child at the sanctuary and this twisted future version. But if the entity was telling the truth, the reset wouldn't truly destroy Milo, just this corrupted iteration. "I'm sorry," she said, to her father, to Kira, to the entity that was and wasn't her brother. "But this has to end." With a decisive twist, she turned the reset key fully in the pocket watch's mechanism. The vortex collapsed inward, concentrating into a beam of pure temporal energy that shot downward, directly into the heart of the accelerator. Reality fractured completely. Lena found herself floating in a void filled with fragments of timelines, Glimpses of Nova Aeon in various states, of her family together and apart, of countless paths not taken. The entity that had been Rourke, Milo, howled in what might have been rage or release as it dissolved into the void. At the center of everything hung a single door, the same one from her dreams, but fully visible now. On one side was darkness, on the other, light. The reset key floated before it, waiting. Time is a door, Lena remembered. The key turns both ways. She could lock the door, sealing Kronos Night away forever, but also trapping herself in this liminal space. Or she could unlock it completely, allowing all possibilities to coexist simultaneously, a reality without form or structure, but with infinite potential. Instead, she chose a third option, taking the key. She placed it inside the door itself, neither locking nor unlocking it, but becoming part of its very mechanism. The door began to transform, hardening from abstract concept into something more definite, a boundary between what was and what could be, permeable but intact. "Balance," she whispered, understanding at last what her mother had tried to achieve. Not elimination, but harmony. The pocket watch in her hand grew warm once more, not painfully but comfortingly. The clock hands began to move forward at their normal pace, and the fragments of time around her started to realign, drawn together by the stabilizing influence of the door-become boundary. Lena closed her eyes as reality rewrote itself around her, accepting whatever came next. She woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. For a moment, she lay perfectly still, trying to orient herself in time and space. The room was familiar, yet different, her posters and books arranged slightly differently than she remembered. On her desk sat a simple alarm clock, no pocket watch in sight. "Lena, breakfast," a woman's voice called from downstairs, a voice she recognized instantly despite not having heard it in years. Heart pounding. Lena rushed downstairs to find her mother, Alara Kane, alive and well, making pancakes in the kitchen. Beside her stood Dr. Kane reading a newspaper, and at the table, a teenage Milo devoured his breakfast with typical adolescent enthusiasm. "Morning, sleepyhead," Alara said with a smile. "You must have been up late studying. Big test today, right?" Lena nodded automatically, too stunned to speak. Her mother looked older than in her memories, but vibrant and happy. No shadows lingered in her eyes. No weight of terrible knowledge burdened her shoulders. "Don't forget we're having dinner at the university tonight," Dr. Kane reminded them. "The temporal physics department is celebrating your mother's breakthrough in paradox resolution theory. The Kane-Chen model is revolutionizing the field," Alara said modestly, "though I still think we're just scratching the surface of how time actually works." As her family continued their normal morning routine, Lena gradually pieced together her new reality. The temporal collapse had never happened. The Kronos Institute existed as a legitimate research organization, not a controlling government entity. Her mother had pursued her theories about temporal physics through academic channels, collaborating with other scientists rather than being exploited for abilities she apparently never developed in this timeline. Most significantly, there was no sign of Kronos Night. The skies above Nova Aeon were clear, the stars visible at night, the darkness just darkness, natural and unthreatening. Yet Lena retained memories of both timelines, the dark world of rifts and rewinding, and this brighter, stable reality. When she checked her reflection, she noticed a small mark on her palm, shaped like a key. That evening, as the family prepared for the university dinner, Lena found a moment alone with her mother. "Mom," she began hesitantly, "do you ever have dreams about doors and keys that turn both ways?" Alara looked at her sharply. "What an odd question. Why do you ask?" "Just curious. I've been having strange dreams lately." Her mother studied her for a long moment, then smiled gently. "Time is a funny thing. Lena, linear in experience, but perhaps not in essence. Some theorists believe all possibilities exist simultaneously, separated by boundaries we can't normally perceive. Like doors, Lena whispered. Like doors, Elara agreed. And sometimes, very rarely, someone comes along with the ability to glimpse through those doors, to see what might have been, or what still could be. She took Lena's hand, running her thumb over the key-shaped mark. Whatever you're seeing in those dreams, remember that you chose this path for a reason. The balance is maintained not by locking doors or tearing them down, but by understanding when to open them and when to leave them closed. That night, as Lena lay in bed watching moonlight stream through her window, she felt the weight of both her histories, the girl who had rewound time and darkened the world, and the girl who had grown up in peace with her family intact. Both were real. Both were her. Outside, the stars shone brightly in a clear sky. Somewhere beyond perception, a door stood firm, neither fully open nor completely closed, but perfectly balanced. And if, occasionally, Lena thought she glimpsed shadows moving with slightly too much purpose, or heard whispers that seemed to come from nowhere, she didn't fear them. Time was a door, and she had become the key, turning both ways, maintaining the delicate balance between what was, what is, and what might yet be.